The chair calls the Education Policy Committee to order for Wednesday, February 26, 2025. And we do have a quorum here, so let's look at the minutes. Representative Lawrence, have you had a chance to review the minutes by chance? Put you on the spot here.
Madam Chair, I appreciate being put on the spot, but I'm going to be honest, I have not reviewed the minutes as of yet, so I'd
Okay.
defer to another colleague.
I'm going to turn to our resident expert here, Representative Jordan. Have you had a chance?
Madam Chair, I have examined the minutes, and they do appear to be in order, so I would move their approval.
Thank you very much, Representative Jordan. You've moved the minutes for Tuesday, February 25th, 2025. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? All right. The minutes have been approved for Tuesday, February 25th, 2025. So we have the first bill up here. That would be House File 15. Representative Engen, welcome to the committee. And the chair moves that House File 15 be re-referred to the Committee on Public Safety, Finance, and Policy. Representative Engen has an author's amendment to clarify that schools receiving a SHIELD grant would include their modifications in their facility plans, and other schools may include a Safe Schools plan in their facilities planning. And we can defer to nonpartisan staff if anyone has specific questions after we adopt the amendment. So the chair moves the adoption of the A1 amendment. All in favor say aye. And opposed, nay. The motion prevails and the A1 amendment is adopted. Representative Engen, please present House File 15 as amended, and after your remarks, we will go to the testifiers.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. Before we get into the substance of the bill, I first want to start out by kind of sharing a little bit of background as to how I got involved in wanting to pursue school safety-based legislation in the first place. And I'm going to take you way back. I'm going to date myself here. It was actually 8th grade. And it was 2012, December 14th, when in the middle of our first period class, we got interrupted by the teacher who sounded extremely stern when she said, "Everybody be quiet. Oh my God, it's happened again." And she turned on the TV and we saw the news of a school shooting in Connecticut. And this was, of course, Sandy Hook. And I didn't quite understand what was going on. I didn't quite comprehend just the severity or even the extent to which evil would try to do that to vulnerable people simply for the sake of being evil. And it was the first time that I really had to kind of explore my own mortality and recognize that here in school, a place that I believed to be safe, it isn't. So fast forward, and here we are with this bill because that stuck with me. So before I go into the specific details of the policy here, I want to talk about what this bill isn't. This bill is not a bill about guns. I think that we have a tendency to revert back to that discussion when engaging in a dialogue surrounding school safety. And I don't really care if you're a card-carrying NRA member or if you are the most staunch and fervent believer in gun control. I think we can all come to a consensus and agree that this is the right approach to take, giving schools the resources that they need to provide that shield for students, teachers, and staff if the worst case scenario were to ever occur, God forbid. This bill isn't about hardening schools. I think we've heard that a lot as well. People have a tendency to just assume that we're trying to create a prison environment out of a school, and none of us want that. These installments are completely naked to the human eye until they're deployed, in which case they're helping save lives. And this bill isn't about stripping or rediverting resources away from the mental health proactive measures that, those resources are already tough to come by. We don't want to take away from those funds. We want to beef up our comprehensive school safety approach by allowing there to be a new funding mechanism for schools to provide that innovative, tangible security. So overall, this is just simply a bill that puts students, teachers, and staff first, providing them with resources to have cover, concealment, and communication in those dire circumstances. And I'm going to turn it over to my testifiers because they're going to give you guys, I think, a real tangible, a really thought-provoking comprehensive overview of the bill before we go into any of the policy questions. But I appreciate the time, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Representative Engen. And members, you should have in your folders testifier materials for House File 15, and I invite you to review those while we hear from our testifiers. To the testifiers, I will call you up two at a time, and when you are recognized, please state your name for the record and any organization you might represent. Also, please keep your comments to 2 minutes. We will have a 30-second, if you keep an eye, glance up every once in a while, if you hold up the 30-second warning kind of, and then there'll be the time, because we do want to keep moving here. We want to hear the testifiers and appreciate that, and then also have some member discussion. So we're going to start, I'll call testifiers up two at a time. We'll start with Jason Polinsky and Christine Haugen. If they could come up to the table, and then I'm going to kind of call on deck will be Joel Koski and Jim Galich, and I apologize if I am butchering your names. So we will start with Jason Polinsky. Please introduce yourself for the record and begin.
Hi, my name is Jason Polinsky. I'll just kind of, is that good? Just dive into it now. I have over 29 years of diversified law enforcement experience, including a 10 years as a school resource officer in the Lakeville Public School District. Throughout my career, I've dedicated myself to enhancing the safety and security of our educational environments, recognizing that our children deserve to learn in a space where their well-being is prioritized. I was awarded the Medal of Merit as well as the Friend of Education Award for the work I put into active shooter response and keeping our kids safe. With my experience as an SRO and supervisor of the SRO program, I have investigated and overseen over 55 threats of violence to public schools since 2002. I've also trained first responders and school employees in crucial topics such as active shooter responses, bomb threats, and lockdown drills for nearly 2 decades. This training is vital, but just one piece of a much larger puzzle. While the current protocols like Run, Hide, Fight offer some guidance, my research and practical experience has shown that these plans are inherently flawed when applied to the realities of many modern school buildings. I wrote my master's thesis on this subject, which highlighted the glaring inadequacies of this approach. Many schools are not built with the structural considerations that would allow students and staff to implement these strategies in a crisis. This brings me to the urgency of House File 15. This legislation is a game changer for Minnesota schools as it aims to redefine the standards for school safety. It is the only holistic and comprehensive system available to create an effective change to keep our teachers and students safe. It is the only system that provides the tools for the teachers and the kids to take their school back. It is the only system that packages the before, being prevention, the during and active, and the aftermath of a situation. It is only language that enhances response for the stakeholders and eliminate a target-rich environment in seconds. HF 15, furthermore, is a game changer for police response and on arrival by providing responding officers valuable tools to interact with a threat in minutes faster than without. With the patches of HF 15, we can move past the outdated Run, Hide, Fight framework that unfortunately leaves our students vulnerable. It's time to embrace a more comprehensive approach. I can finish real quick. One of the leading causes of death and injury in the 1900s was school fires. After Our Lady of Angels school fire, 95 children and teachers lost their lives. After that fire, the fire code was enforced. Since that fire, not one child has lost their life in a school. So you have to look at what is a fire suppression system. It's a multi-layered, comprehensive system that gets the fire department there faster, puts out and contains the fire, and alerts the entire building. We need a paradigm shift on how we're approaching this. The blueprint is there, and we need to be comprehensive and multi-layered. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And next we have Christine Haugen.
Haugen.
Haugen,
Yes.
all right. If you please
see.
introduce yourself.
Hello.
and begin.
Okay. Hello, my name is Christine Haugen, and my approach is a little bit more simple. I am an office manager at a K-8 school here in the local area. One of my roles is to oversee visitor management and workplace security. I am here to express my strong support for the SHIELD Act, which expands funding critical school safety improvements. Managing visitor access has shown me firsthand the importance of strong security measures. These layers of security, schools need controlled entry points, surveillance systems, emergency communication tools, and lockdown infrastructure to protect students and staff. These layers of security throughout the entire building allow for quick response times in a crisis, ensuring that staff doesn't have to stop and think, they can act immediately. Most importantly, these measures provide peace of mind for students, staff, and our parents. A safe school is one where learning can thrive without fear. Schools shouldn't have to choose between maintaining their building and ensuring safety. The SHIELD Act gives them the resources to do both. I urge the committee to support this bill and help create safer schools for all. Thank you.
All right, next up, we have Joel Koski and Jill. I'm going to let Jill Galach. Okay, thank you. And then on deck, we have Michelle, and I'm going to let you pronounce your last name, Michelle, when you come up, and Brett. So we'll start with Joel when he comes up.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me. My name is Joel Koski. I'm also a K-8 administrator. I'm a principal at a local school here in Lakeville. Good to be coworkers with Christine, who you just heard from. She's our office manager. We've been fortunate enough to be blessed to have a system like the one that's mentioned in this bill for the past 5 years. And I want to express again my strong support for this act as well. The teachers in our schools bear a great responsibility for the students in their classrooms. They're not trained to take on their responsibility, but in the times of need, they must act, and it's a huge part of their job come time of some sort of event. Security is important to be integrated into a school safety plan, long-term and short-term. Schools need structured and proactive solutions. Often we find ourselves reacting in our roles at schools, and especially being a principal. My job can be very reactive, but this is one area where I'm thankful to have a proactive response to, and teachers trained to know what to do. Many schools often lack the financial resources to implement the security measures that are in place at our school. I've been able to see firsthand how important the system that we have is to our schools, and implementing that multi-layered security system has given confidence to our families. Every school deserves the safety that we have, and I've been fortunate to be a part of that. Thank you.
Thank you, and go ahead and proceed. Introduce yourself for the record.
Chairperson Bennett and members of the committee. My name is Jim Galach, and I'm an associate principal at Chisago Lakes Middle School, an independent school, District 2144. I've been an educator for 35 years, of which the 10 last years have been an assistant principal. Chisago Lakes District is located about 38 minutes north of here, and we serve 3,218 students in our K-12 buildings. 728 of them attend the building where I work, our middle school. Our middle school was built in 1935 with subsequent additions coming with safety challenges due to the age and the original design of our building. While we have a comprehensive plan known as the I Love You Guys, or the Standard Response Protocol, developed in collaboration with our local environment, our school law enforcement environment, the physical structure of our building compromises its effectiveness and poses unique challenges maintaining safety for our school and our staff and our district. Our main entryway has 27-foot width, and 24 feet of that is glass. It's intended to an intended check-in point, which you see in pictures in front of you, can be easily bypassed and access to 2 gymnasiums and a cafeteria rather easily. Furthermore, the third floor houses 9 classrooms, with 8 of those classrooms having no doors at all, including just curtains. Again, some of the things that the SHIELD Act would provide is bullet-resistant doors and windows. These are essential for creating environments that are safe for our kids, ballistic wall panels, magnetic locking systems, and classroom duress alarms and mass notification systems, which would be essential, again, for the safety of our folks. The SHIELD Act represents a significant opportunity to create safer learning environments for all of our kids. Thank you.
Okay, next we have Michelle Frauenschuh and Brett Domstrand. And then waiting in the wings here, we'll have Leah Jones and Michael Bauman. And we'll start with Michelle. Please introduce yourself for the record and begin.
Beautiful pronunciation, Chairperson Bennett.
I had some help over here to my right, so.
Chairperson Bennett and committee members, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. My name is Michelle Frauenschuh. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist and owner of Life Development Resources, a trauma specialty clinic with 60-plus therapists in the metro area. I've been in practice since 1999, it's been a minute, specializing in high-risk youth and families for my entire career. I have worked in the forensic and residential settings in private practice. I'm a member of the Association of Threat Assessment Professionals and a certified CSTAG trainer. CSTAG is the evidence-based professional judgment tool most often used to assess risk for concerning student behaviors. I'm here to support HF 15 as an important bill to enhance school safety and provide additional support for staff and students should violence occur. As a professional who has treated many individuals who were on the pathway to violence, a layer of physical safety measures would provide me with a sense of comfort as I work with the client to reduce risk. I am fully aware that I cannot predict a violent act through my work, but I can identify concerning behaviors and support the client in making those changes. I am passionate about our state's commitment to children's mental health, particularly school-linked behavioral health and school district threat assessment teams. As a clinical supervisor, I hear every day the positive impact mental health access in the schools has on children's lives. And sometimes, even with a competent mental health prevention team, violent incidents do occur. As a behavioral threat assessment professional, I'm also deeply aware of our physical vulnerabilities within schools when preventative intervention strategies have not been sufficient. To complement the excellent work our mental health teams do in our school districts, I believe we need additional safety measures as outlined in HF 15. These additional safety measures need to be designed by and trained by organizations who have the tactical and strategic lens that only comes from individuals who have a background in law enforcement or military. In my mind, the goal is to keep the vulnerable safe at school by creating a secure environment. Should an act of violence occur, structural safety measures can insulate the person engaging in an act of violence in their moment of crisis so that we can minimize damage to themselves and others.
Please wrap up quickly if you could.
Policymakers, mental health providers, administrators, teachers, parents, and physical security consultants are all layers of support needed to keep our kids safe, and this comprehensive system would make a profound difference. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Brett Domstrand?
Brett Domstrand.
Domstrand, okay, thank you. Go ahead and proceed.
Thank you, Chair Bennett and committee members. My name is Brett Domstrand, and I'm the proud principal of Lake Marion Elementary in Lakeville. I want to just talk about something that weighs heavily on every educator's mind, which is school safety. Recently, our school underwent a significant security upgrade. We added cameras, magnetic door locks, and reinforced security walls within our classrooms designed to protect our students in the event of a school threat. Because of these improvements, we can now move over 700 students into safe places in less than 60 seconds. We do that in our drills. So the relief I feel knowing that we can secure our building so quickly is indescribable. In the past, our lockdown drills consisted of either hiding or running, and practices that left us with more questions than answers. And as you can imagine, the stress as a teacher or a principal feels when thinking about how students might react in a real crisis. Will they run? Will they freeze? What happens if students do both? Who does a teacher follow? These are the harsh realities we face when considering school safety. But today, thanks to improved procedures and reinforcements, we have measures in place that buy us the critical time we need until help arrives. These changes don't just provide security, they provide peace of mind. When combined with our positive behavior systems and mental health supports, we can create a great learning environment for all. As someone who has experienced the difference firsthand, I urge you to support the safety of our schools. Our students deserve a place where they can learn and grow without fear, and let's work together to make that a reality. Thank you.
Okay, next we have Leah Jones and Michael Bauman, and then up ready to go would be Judy Kelleher and Lauren Belts. So we'll start with Leah Jones, if you introduce yourself for the record and begin when you're ready.
Good afternoon. My name is Leah Jones, and I am the Executive Director of Life Prep School in St. Paul. We are just 7 short minutes away from the Capitol building, and we serve pre-K through 6th grade. I have been at Life Prep for 19 years, first as a teacher and now for the last 8 years as director. The location of my school poses a large number of safety concerns. We have seen a huge increase in criminal activity right outside our building, often on school grounds. I have also seen an increase in student behavior that is also a threat to our safety. On one occasion, it was necessary for me to close school in order to completely address the situation. I had always known that my school was nowhere near equipped to handle today's safety issues, but it wasn't until the day we closed that I was so cruelly slapped in the face with the reality of what education is like today. You see, the reality is that I and my staff are all my students have when it comes to protection. The reality is, my morning starts off like most, but when I get ready in the morning, I have to consider my wardrobe options a bit more carefully. You see, I need at least 3 pockets. 1 for my pepper spray, 1 for my work cell, and the other is my personal cell. My work cell is for calling 911 if I am in a violent situation, and my personal cell is to call my husband while I wait for help. I need to carefully consider my footwear. Tennis shoes are my best choice. If I have to run, I have to be fast. I can't slip because every second counts, and I know that I am most likely to die while fumbling with my keys while trying to unlock a door. Funding has been my biggest challenge. My students need safe spaces in the event of extreme violence. The multiple layers of protection presented here in this bill provide the protective layers that I need for my school. Today, you have the ability to make this all possible with your support of the SHIELD Act. You have the ability to help us make our schools safer for everyone. Today, I ask you to be part of the solution and make school safety a top priority in Minnesota.
Okay, next we have Michael Bauman.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Michael Bauman. I am superintendent for Lakeville area schools. I came to be a superintendent from a very unconventional path. I spent 20 years on active duty in the military and a combat veteran. As I became into the public school system, you know that school superintendents, we face many complex challenges in ensuring that our schools are safe and secure. And in the contemporary operating environment we're in today, you know about the many situations that occur. And despite support systems for mental health, for behavior, and for providing counseling and many other professional assistance, physical security is quite lacking in public school systems. There is no uniform standard for physical security in our schools, and Minnesota can do better. One of my greatest concerns as a superintendent, although there are many, one for sure is school safety, because a safe learning environment creates the conditions for learning that are necessary. The potential loss of life from an active shooter event is a concern for any superintendent, and you can ask them all. As a superintendent, I've often been in places where the question comes out to us, what keeps you awake at night? And superintendents say things like resource shortages, or they might say that they have concerns with public relations and those kinds of things. And those are legitimate. When I'm asked, I say loss of life of students or staff from an active shooter incident. That's what keeps me awake at night. And I say that because I've been there as a battalion commander in a combat environment. I know what it is to protect your soldiers and worry about them. Same thing with students and staff. And an active shooting event is a forever event. And so I have concerns when you think about Uvalde or Parkland, Florida, which are some of the more noted ones. What happens is people go through the districts and with fine-tooth combs, and they find out what all the failures are. And they are security failures, and mostly physical security failures, as well as leadership failures. Financial consequences of reactive measures versus proactive protection systems argue strongly against making that the reason to avoid implementation costs for HF 15. I strongly advocate for true protection The current conventional security measures, they do not protect. Cameras, access control, run, hide, fight, insufficient. This bill calls for a simplified,
Wrap it up quickly,
multi-layered
please.
protection. I'll wrap up by saying,
Thank you.
I please support this opportunity for Minnesota and for our superintendents.
Very much. Judy Kelleher is next, and Lauren Bells. And then last up, we have a remote testifier, Rick Kaufman. So we'll start with Judy Kelleher. Whenever you're ready.
Good afternoon, Chair Bennett and committee members. I am Judy Kelleher, and as an elected Lakeville Area School Board member for the past 28 years, finishing my final term at the end of 2024, the safety of our students and staff has always been a top priority. A safe school is essential for a successful learning environment, and as an employer, keeping a safe work environment for our staff was also important. School boards are responsible for creating safe environments for students and staff by setting policies, allocating resources, providing oversight, and advocating for public education needs. Policies and resource allocation must include prevention, crisis intervention, and mental health support, in addition to emergency preparedness and physical security updates to the facilities. Oversight includes establishing and monitoring safety metrics, along with engaging our students, staff, families, law enforcement, and mental health specialists to stay informed on concerns. And it's critical that we ensure that our policies are effective and that they're being kept current. Advocating for school safety and security for our public schools is something all families, all districts, and all communities want and need. No district, no community, and no state wants to deal with the aftermath of active threats within any of our schools. The SHIELD Act is the multi-layered system that we have implemented in our Lakeville area schools, and it's a proactive, student-centered approach to school security. Its focus on prevention and addressing the mental health needs of our students is as important as the physical building upgrades. Keeping the school buildings welcoming and looking like a school was important for our students and our families. Our school buildings look no different today than they did before the system was installed. The students only see a blue button on the wall and a box on the ceiling. With this system, such as fire drills and tornado drills, constant training is also required when there's an active threat to make sure the right steps are taken to ensure the best possible outcome. With this multi-layered system installed across the entire district, if asked, did you do all you can to protect your students and staff? I can say that I did.
And Lauren Bells.
Good afternoon, Chair Bennett and members. Thank you for allowing me to speak today on behalf of the SHIELD Act. My name is Lauren Bells, and I'm a junior at White Bear Lake Area High School. As a high schooler, it is well known that most students do not feel safe at school, myself included. As a student, I believe that it is of the utmost importance that students feel safe in their schools, which is why I support this act. On a personal level, I've experienced countless lockdowns, both drills and real. Just this past year, as I was getting ready to go to school, I got a text message from a friend saying the school had gone to a lockdown. My friend was extremely upset because she'd been studying in a classroom alone, and she had little space where she could hide from sight and didn't have a teacher to go to for help. If my friend was able to access tools that could call for help and have a classroom built to protect her and other students, the situation would have looked much different. This, among countless other examples, is the reason why schools need the funding to create safer environments. Having a building equipped with features to keep my peers and I safe is extremely important to me, which is why I support this act. Thank you for your time today, and I'm asking that you please join me and my peers in supporting the SHIELD Act.
Okay, and last up, we have Rick Kaufman. Rick is remote, so we'll get him up here. Okay, Rick Kaufman, can you hear us okay?
And thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee, the opportunity to testify today. My name is Rick Kaufman, and for the past 18 years, I've served as the Executive Director of Community Relations and Emergency Management for Bloomington Public Schools. This after public school stints in Wisconsin and Colorado. I apologize, I'm less than 24 hours removed from cancer surgery on my throat. I've dedicated the past 23 or 32 years working in school safety, emergency management, and crisis response. Following the tragic shooting at Columbine High School on April 20th, 1999, I was among the first to arrive on site to offer triage and rescue of students and staff. In the aftermath, I was entrusted with co-leading the Columbine crisis response team, guiding recovery efforts for our community, for the school, and for our staff and students. In the years since, I have been called upon with boots on the ground to assist schools that have faced these most unimaginable tragedies, including Sandy Hook Elementary School, Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School, and Uvalde Public Schools. I made a promise after Columbine to the victims' families to dedicate my career to improving school safety and security, a commitment that I've upheld by working with hundreds of school districts across this country, school safety centers and emergency management agencies and professionals nationwide to help them prepare for, respond to, and recover from all forms of school violence. My experience has given me firsthand insight into what truly works in preventing school violence, and I am here today to testify in opposition to House File 15, the SHIELD Act. While I appreciate the intent behind enhancing school safety, I have serious concerns this bill overemphasizes physical security measures at the expense of proven prevention strategies. School security is not a one-size-fits-all solution of target hardening and physical security hardware. These alone do not stop school shootings, as no amount of bullet-resistant doors or access controls will prevent a motivated attacker, a vast majority which are current and former students familiar with the layout, security measures, and entry points of their schools. I have the data and research and documentation that I have provided in a full testimony to this committee. Let me summarize these last 3 points. We need a balanced approach to school safety. This bill assumes security as a one-size-fits-all solution of target hardening and physical security hardware. School safety cannot be solved by locks and doors alone. It must start with people and products with a focus on intervention and prevention. This bill prioritizes security of the industry profits over real solutions that can prevent violence rather than react it to. We owe it to our students, our teachers, our families, and our communities to invest in proven research-driven strategies and not spend millions on security theater that looks good but does little to stop school shootings. I appreciate your time and attention. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Kaufman, and thank you for coming so quickly after your surgery. We wish you a speedy recovery. So, members, that concludes our list of testifiers, and public testimony is now closed. Thank you to each of the testifiers. Members, do we have any discussion? Representative Green.
Thank you so much, Chair. And thank you, Representative Engen, for bringing this bill forward. I have a couple questions. One, first of all, I want to thank you for this conversation. I think school safety is on the front minds of all of our students and our teachers, especially everyone here who testified today. It is something that, as a school board member, we talked about quite a bit. So I have a couple questions. One is charter schools. So charter schools can't own their own buildings. And so in here, they don't have to have a 10-year facility plan because it doesn't necessarily equate to them owning the buildings. And so my question is, they are, though, allowed to get these grants. So I didn't know if you had talked to the charter school groups to see if the things that are listed are things that could be put into a building that they're renting. So I didn't know if there was some flexibility there that you had considered.
Representative Engen.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the question. I actually have consulted with multiple charter schools, and they believe that this can be installed and it can also be withdrawn from that site. Plus, I just believe that we should be protecting every student in every school, regardless of public, charter, private, whatever it might be. But in this particular instance, charter schools, they do believe that they would have the appropriate oversight to have their facilities maintenance plan, take care of this equipment, and withdraw it if need be.
Great.
Representative Green, follow-up?
Yes, yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, I'm a big fan of charter schools, and so I just wanted to make sure that there wasn't too much control in terms of what they would do, because they are looking at a different type of building.
course.
So, thank you. I appreciate you speaking with them and talking about them. And then my second question is, you know, as a board member, we would have a public safe school plan that was open to the public. And, you know, people could make comments on it, and it was posted in our open meetings. And then we would have a closed session to hear the plans and things that we had in place to protect our kids. And it's in statute 108.5, I think, that talks about that, and I can share that with the group. So the only thing that I pause a little bit in terms of how we communicate after this. I'm in support of this bill, by the way. But I think when you talk about doing reports and the report out, and even the application process for getting the grants, I would just, actually, this is more of a comment, unless you have done that already, but I think it behoove us to look at what is kept private and why it's kept private. You know, I know that part of that is the actual safety. You know, there's different safety measures in Edina Public Schools that the public does not know about because we can't, because it puts the kids more at risk. And so I would just encourage that conversation, just to make sure that in that application process, we are not inadvertently exposing more than we need to.
Representative Engen, did you want to comment on that?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for your comments. I would be more than happy to work with you offline, too. I want to get this right, and I want this to be a green board at the end of the day. So we should definitely continue this discussion. One of the things that I would say to the point of not wanting to alert a potential individual who could cause that threat of these installments, this would be a deterrent overall. There'd be a disincentive to target a school that has these upgrades, correct? And so I don't know if this is something that I could maybe refer to a testifier from, but I would believe that schools who have this installed have seen a lesser extent to some of those threats.
Representative Green.
Yes, just a quick follow-up, Chair. Thank you. Yeah, no, I agree. I just know that there are things in place in school districts that you don't want in the public, and no matter what. And I do think it is a deterrent. I think it's part of a larger solution, comprehensive approach to this, which I appreciated your opening and talking about that. So thank you. I'm happy to work with you.
Any other members before I go to Lee Jordan? Oh, there we go. Representative Keeler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Representative, for the bill. I have a couple questions, but first I feel like I keep saying I've done everything but be a teacher in the school district. I was also part of our BERT team, which is the Building Emergency Response Team, because I was a front desk administrator. I was the one that got trained to ignite to the rest of my school that there was trouble at the front door. We didn't have panic buttons. We didn't have fireproof glass. Like, it was terrifying to do a basic job. And so my first question, because we had this conversation within our own caucus, is that there's this assumption, I think it's an assumption, that every school has secure entrances. Do you know, like, what percent or where we are with just our Minnesota schools on how many of our schools don't even have secure entrances?
Representative Engen.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the question. I believe it's so variable that it's completely untenable to even try to track that. And one of the things that we want to allow for in this bill, because of that and the variability in each building, is a specific guideline as to how to install these and retrofit it to the needs of that particular school site. And so because of that, yeah, we do need to improve our overall just sense of understanding as to how we even build a school with those thoughts in mind. But this takes that into account as well, some of those variables.
Representative Keeler?
Yep, thank you, Chair. I'm going to have a couple more questions, too. So, I mean, I think the answer is no, not all schools in Minnesota have secured entrances. And so kind of going back to the hat that I used to wear, back to all of my friends who are still at the front desk of schools, I lean into this bill and support it because I do believe that we have to support the workers that are designated to support our kids. I do want to ask, I want to shift into kind of just the grant process itself, because I am a firm believer that Minnesota money should stay in Minnesota. And so I didn't see, and tell me if I'm just not reading it right, I sort of thought maybe it would be, where did I see where it said the vendor must be able to prove that they, oh, right here, line 2.22, that the vendor must be able to prove for at least 2 years, you know, that they have experience. Is there any appetite for making these Minnesota grants useful for Minnesota vendors? Because what I don't want to happen is that we do Minnesota taxpayers to solve a Minnesota issue, and now we're like buying all of our stuff from vendors that are elsewhere when we have them right here in our own state.
Representative Engen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. 100%. I couldn't agree more. In fact, we wanted to make sure that this didn't inadvertently leave anybody out. But I could see a scenario in which there are folks now claiming to provide these services that actually don't and don't have the expertise in it. I think that a Minnesota-based vendor eligibility amendment would be an awesome one.
Representative Keeler.
Yep, thank you, Chair. Thank you for that, because I've been looking into it. Being a border city, there's a lot of commerce laws that we have to work around. But I really think when we do things like this, we all take pride in what we do here in Minnesota. And so I know this is moving to another stop, would be, I don't sit at that table, but would really enjoy and welcome an opportunity to look at amendments, at least as a priority that our money in Minnesota is staying with Minnesota businesses. I think that would be valid. So I would suggest that we follow up and work on that. And then, did you want to say anything in response to that?
Representative Engen.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. You can count on my word that amendment will be prepared for the next committee stop, which I believe is public safety.
Yeah.
Representative Keeler.
Yep, sure. And then the one thing I want to say, it's not to this bill, but it's to the topic, and we've talked about it, and I think that it is important to recognize. I know that we've talked about mass shootings in other places, but in March, we will be coming up on the 20-year anniversary of the shooting in Red Lake. And I think that we just have to name that, and I would like, Madam Chair, for us to just take a moment of silence in this committee, because we are talking about something that is really meaningful, and it is a generational impact. And I think that what you're doing here to protect kids is important. I think it's not just protecting the kids that are in the building, it's the generations after that, after you've gone through a traumatic space. Leaning into the attendance conversation we have had and spent a robust time, I think it's really important that our kids continue to feel safe. So thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair, for letting me take the time to honor the individuals from Red Lake as well.
Thank you, members. Let's stand, and if the audience would like to stand as well, we'll just take a moment to honor anybody, Red Lake and so on, who've been impacted by these tragic events. Thank you. Representative Keeler, did you have anything else?
No, that's it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Representative Hill.
Thank you, Chair Bennett, and thank you, Representative, for bringing this bill. It's an important topic. It's one that you and I started with an initial topic on, I think, more than a year ago, and so I really appreciate you bringing the bill. I have a couple of really quick questions. I do want to offer a note that I am in support of the bill and look forward to following it through public safety and following it along on its journey. I want to start on line 2.31, where you start the list of qualifying expenditures under the SHIELD Act here. And I'm wondering, and this has been influenced by our final speaker, Mr. Kaufman, who really had an emphasis in his words around the strategic deployment of some of these items along with training and different elements to support the school community. And so my question would be, is there an order of operations, or is there a different tier level that you can look at some of these items that, you know, for example, a controlled main access point, I would think would be a very baseline necessity for our schools to have. I can remember in the district where I operate, it's been now 15 years, we're over a 3-year experience, they divided the schools into 3 groups. And each summer, they added a vestibule and, you know, the intercom and the equipment there to have a controlled access point for each of our schools, and that's now intact. What I learned from conversation with Representative Keeler and others is that this isn't universal. This is not happening in every one of our schools across Minnesota. And so I'm wondering if there's kind of an order of operations that could be included here to making sure that some of those basic level security options are in place before we move to more sophisticated.
Representative Engen.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Representative Hill, for that. 100%, I think that that's something that we should definitely look into. And again, I want to work with you guys offline about this. Not every school is the same. For example, we had a testifier from Chisago who is talking about how many of their classroom doors aren't actually doors, they're shower curtains. They would have an order of operations that probably started with a new door, for example. But yeah, we should look into potentially having there be an assessment as to what schools should prioritize with that list as well. And going back to our testifier, which first I'd like to thank him and just recognize his passion in this space, to be here 24 hours after a cancer surgery. It's pretty incredible. But we also want to make sure that with these security installments, it's also going to open up funding from Safe Schools levy dollars towards more of the mental health prevention side of things. And so this could work in concert with those other tools, not butt heads with. So thank you.
Representative Hill.
Thank you, Chair Bennett. And just another follow-up. And this goes to the comments that Ms. Kelleher brought with her in her experience set. The safety of our students is paramount. But her comments around not just our physical safety of our students, but our psychological safety of our students, and ensuring that these measures, should we deploy them in schools, are undetectable to our students. It's just something that's there in place, ready to offer protection. And so I would offer an emphasis on that line of thinking as well. But really thank you for the bill and look forward to following its journey.
Representative Engen.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Representative Hill. Yeah, I want students to first have the opportunity to turn to a counselor in times of crisis, rather than not have those opportunities and turn to violence. That really is the first line of defense. This is the last line of defense, and without it, I think that we're leaving students and staff and teachers vulnerable. But you're 100% correct in saying that this is about an all of the above approach. This is about total wellness, not just physical, but also emotional and mental.
Representative Hill.
Yes, and thank you, Chair Bennett. And just a final follow-up, it's a yes and.
Yes.
Representative Engen, I'm going to support the bill, but I do want to take this opportunity to point out that Minnesota falls well short of where we need to be when it comes to our students to counselor ratio. And so I'm with you and look forward to following this bill as on its way.
Representative Bierman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Representative Engen, for the bill. Appreciated the information, and yeah, it's interesting to go into different schools around the state and see that different level at the front door especially. But we heard a lot from folks from Lakeville today, and would you know, or would you say that they're sort of the most advanced in developing this SHIELD Act?
Representative Engen.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Representative Bierman. So in 2014, I believe, they actually had a referendum. They asked their taxpayers if they wanted this in their schools, and overwhelmingly they supported it. I believe it was actually a record percentage vote for the yes in terms of voting in favor of that referendum. And with that, they have made these installments. They've made a lot of the improvements that we seek to spread to other corners of the state here in Minnesota. And so when walking through that back in December of 2023 and taking a look at all of these and saying, oh my gosh, this needs to go nationwide, we wanted to first allow the resources to go to other school districts who really just don't have the funds to put this into place like Lakeville does. And that's why we kind of modeled it up after their approach.
Representative Bierman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Another question then. Just wondering if you know, or if we maybe call some of the Lakeville folks back up, I was just trying to get a sense of, there's a lot of schools in Lakeville, and so how many of them have had this reinforcement to your knowledge? And what's the level of build out? Is it one particular school, or is it multiple? Thank you.
Representative Engen, looks like you have a testifier, so please introduce yourself for the record.
Jason Polinsky. To answer your question, all Lakeville schools have the complete system. So all 15 schools, I believe, 16 schools have the complete system in their schools.
Madam Chair?
Representative Bierman.
15 schools, so the high schools and the middle schools and the elementary schools. And would the complete system entail those 13 items from line 2.3 to 3.13? All of those are in
Yes,
and done and complete.
and some on top of that.
Madam Chair?
Representative
So is that, was that one referendum enough to do all of this work?
Yes.
Go ahead.
It was.
Yep.
Madam Chair,
Representative Bierman.
can I ask what the total cost was?
This was 2020 numbers was, I think, 15.5, 15 million.
15 million for all 15 schools, so about $1 million a school.
Yeah,
Representative Bierman.
15 million for 15 schools.
That's helpful. Thank you. I appreciate you coming back up and talking about that and putting some idea of numbers in our head. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Representative Jordan, or, yeah, Lead Jordan.
Sydney's fine. Yeah, I have a question first for nonpartisan staff, and thank you, Madam Chair. So I just want to confirm, I think I know the answer to this, but intermediate school districts are also, under, as this is currently written, our intermediate school districts are also eligible for these grants, correct?
Who'd like to take Mr. Strom or Ms. Para? Mr. Strom.
Apologies. Chair Bennett, Representative Jordan, the language right now says district or charter school. It'd be easy enough to include specifically the kinds of cooperative units, which include intermediate school districts and other special ed and education districts.
Lead Jordan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. To Representative Engen, would you, I really hope the answer is yes. Would you be open to preparing an amendment in public safety to include our intermediate and cooperatives that also support public schools?
Yes.
Representative Engen. Okay. Lead Jordan.
Thank you.
Follow up.
Yep, thank you for that. So, great. I hope to see that in public safety. That should be a friendly amendment. If you need help drafting that, let me know or let anyone else know. My other question is regards to line 2.30 in the bill, and maybe that'll change when it's engrossed. But it does say that the vendor is the one that is determining what should be installed. And my question is, and I think, why is it the vendor? Vendor implies that someone is selling something. So I guess I have concerns about letting vendors make decisions about school purchasing, and like a vendor might have some sort of like expertise, but I think it should really be up to school districts about what they need. And I have a lot of concerns about opening up what the vendor determines what should be sold and purchased for versus other entities. Can you talk to me a little bit about why you drafted that line that way, and any other changes that you might be anticipating in that amendment in public safety?
Representative Engen.
No, thank you so much for catching that. Actually, I knew that there are some vendors who do some of those assessments to see which of these listed items would be best to install within a school. And they kind of provide that guidance and support, but we don't want vendors picking and choosing which items are going to be installed, especially because there's an inherent, conflict there. So yeah, let's draft an amendment for that too. This is one of the most constructive overall. Yeah, this is great committee. I really appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Lots of good minds here. Lead Jordan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, so I'm glad we can work on this. Please let me know. I do think school safety is important. It's something that has really impacted my life in particular. And it's something that's very important to me. So I do hope so please feel free to use us to talk about, I think everyone agrees that we need to make sure schools are safe for students. Above all, that's, you can't learn if you're not safe. You just can't. And I really do also want to augment what Representative Hill said, that Minnesota has one of the worst student to school counselor ratios and school mental health support ratios in the country. So we as a committee, need to work on that. all students should have access to that. It's a lot more effective than trying to hold up a bulletproof shield, I think. I wonder about my ability to hold up a shield, a literal shield like that. So making sure that we're working on this, and we are talking about this is a yes and approach, to just really echo what Representative Hill said. You know, schools should be welcoming, they should be safe. And so making sure that we have both that, you know, approaching things like reporting and making sure that we have those student mental health supports. It all needs to be part of that package. So thank you for this bill. Please let me know how we can be helpful in addressing other amendments as it goes along the way.
Okay. Hey, Representative Engen, I'll let you have the last word here, but just I want to thank members for the great discussion. Sounds like you've got a lot of good ideas to take away. Representative Engen, would you like to wrap it up and close your bill?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to the committee members. This was very constructive, and you know, however many times I've looked at this bill, you can always look at it again, and I really appreciate your input. Expect to see those amendments in the next stop in public safety, and we want to make sure we're not forcing kids to hold up a shield. That'd be ridiculous. What we want to do is give them the tools and resources that they need to be safe if the worst case scenario did occur. And with 9 critical incidents on average in each school district across the state, this is an issue that's glaring. And we could be a visionary leader in this space, not only for the state, but nationwide. Others can look to Minnesota and say, yeah, they're addressing, you know, everything, whether it's mental health or the physical security side of things. So I really appreciate your comments and look forward to working with you all on this.
Thank you, Representative Engen. The chair renews the motion that House File 15 as amended be re-referred to the Committee on Public Safety, Finance, and Policy. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The motion prevails, and House File 15 as amended is re-referred to the Committee on Public Safety, Finance, and Policy. All right. So members, we will now proceed to our last bill on the agenda, House File 22 by Representative Gillman. And we'll let some transferring happen here. Representative Gillman, welcome to the committee. All right, so the chair moves that House File 22 be re-referred to the Committee on Health, Finance, and Policy. Representative Gillman has an author's amendment to put the bill in the shape the author prefers. The chair moves adoption of the A3 amendment, and then we'll let Representative Gillman explain that further, but let's get it adopted. So all in favor say aye. Aye. And opposed, nay. The motion prevails and the A3 amendment is adopted. So members, House File 22 as amended covers parental rights in a number of committee jurisdictions. We will be focusing on the provisions relating to education only. So this motion will send the bill to the Health Committee, and I also believe that the Judiciary Committee is on the pathway for this bill as well. So each committee will kind of take their little regions, so we'll stick to the education components. And Representative Gillman, please present House File 12 as amended. House File 22. House File 22 as amended. After your remarks, we will go to the testifiers.
Wonderful. Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members. Thank you so much for this opportunity to present House File 22 as amended, also known as the Parents' Bill of Rights. At the request of the committee chair, again, I will be focusing on the provisions of the bill relating to education and the jurisdiction of this committee. The Parents' Bill of Rights seeks to ensure that the fundamental rights of parents to direct the education of their children are respected and not otherwise infringed unless the action of the government is reasonable and necessary and aligned to the best interest of the child. Specifically under this bill, as amended, parents have the right to exercise freedom of choice in their education of their children in complying with the state's compulsory instruction law, including public, non-public, and homeschool education. Additionally, this bill provides parents the right to access and review all records relating to their minor children. The bill requires written consent before the school can make a video or voice recording unless otherwise allowed under the exceptions listed, such as maintaining order in common areas, legitimate academic or extracurricular activities, or a student ID card, to cite a few common sense exceptions. The bill would require a parent to be notified if a criminal offense has been committed against the child, except, of course, if the offender were the parent. And the bill would prohibit encouragement or coercion of a minor to withhold information from the minor's parents. I will note, several provisions in this bill are already covered under current law, including parental education choice in meeting the state's compulsory instruction law in section 120A.22, the right of parents to review curriculum and request alternative instruction under section 120B.20, and it being declared policy of the state to further assure freedom of choice in education under section 123B.40. I'll also point out in 124D-8957, which provides a detailed statutory cross-reference to parental rights in education, including the rights to notifications related to bullying, student discipline, and teacher hiring background checks. Before we proceed with the testifiers and member discussion, I do want to address a few concerns. All right. First, I've been made aware that codifying the language in Chapter 260C might not be the most appropriate location. And I'm also working with staff in a more appropriate statutory placement that will be addressed in a future committee stop. Second, the provisions here related to health care, access, and treatment, and those issues will be discussed in the next committee and health committee. And third, while this bill affirms the parental rights to review educational data retained by the school, current statutory safeguards for students in certain circumstances would remain in place. Finally, I will continue to meet with advocates, as I have been the last couple weeks, and officials who have concerns, but I will point out to the language in the bill that the rights of parents must not be limited or denied unless otherwise prescribed in law. And nowhere in this bill do we use the words notwithstanding any other law. My primary goal is that when there is a decision point regarding the education or upbringing of a child, when the parent then should be the central determination unless there's good reason to exclude the parent. So thank you.
Thank you, Representative Gillman. So members, you have in your folders testifier materials for House File 22, and I invite you to review those as we're hearing from our testifiers. To the testifiers, I will call you up two at a time, and when you are recognized, please state your name for the record and any organization you might represent. I will ask you to try to stay focused on the education-related provisions of the bill. There are a number of others that are healthcare-related, which we will not be getting into in this committee. If you do want to testify on those components, please return for the next committee stop. But we will stick with the education-related provisions. And please keep your comments to 2 minutes. Keep an eye up here, and Ms. Miller will be holding up little flashcards. So we're going to start with Karen Miller and Christina Barton. And then on deck will be Ann Taylor and Deb Corehouse. So let's start with Karen Miller. We'll wait for just a second here and get you both seated.
Oh, sure.
Did you two decide to coordinate today? It kind of looks like it here. So, all right. We'll start with Karen Miller. You look great. Go ahead and introduce yourself for the record.
Well, thank you, Chair Bennett and members of the committee. My name is Karen Miller. I'm a wife, mother of 6, teacher, and author of Faith in Action. And I'm here to speak in favor of the Parents' Bill of Rights, HF 22, and want to thank Representative Gillman and everyone who has worked to bring this bill forward. So early on in our parenting journey, my husband and I chose to homeschool our children. We realized that it was simply a natural extension of the nurture we were already showing our young children. In the same way we taught them to care for their bodies, we could also nurture their minds by teaching them the sounds and symbols of our language and the numeric concepts and patterns replete in our world. So homeschooling allowed us to do this in a manner consistent with our biblical worldview, for the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. And it gave us the flexibility to do so in a manner that best fit their diverse learning styles, from a child who learned to read on her own to one who is severely dyslexic. We are grateful for the support of our parental rights that allowed us to make these educational choices on behalf of our children, which has been the key to their success. And we're not alone in making this decision. Parents have also chosen homeschooling for nearly 30,000 students in Minnesota. So then now for a moment, I want to invite us to just pause and step back and consider the big picture of parental rights. You know, biological reality itself teaches us that every child has the right to both a mother and a father. Each child is derived from their DNA, born of the mother's body, and delivered into their waiting arms. Thus, the parent-child relationship is a sacred bond that must be protected. The right of parents to care for and direct the upbringing of their children in every aspect is a sacred trust. Yet, in Minnesota's classrooms and halls of medicine, we are seeing policies and practices that undermine this sacred bond and seek to influence vulnerable minor children apart from their parents' knowledge or consent. No teacher, doctor, or government agent should ever infringe upon the sacred parent-child relationship. So it is time for the state of Minnesota to explicitly codify into law protections for inalienable parental rights. There is no better gift we could give the children of our state, no better safeguard for their well-being or future. Empowering parents is a key to thriving children. So I encourage you to vote in favor of the Parents' Bill of Rights and watch our future generations soar. Thank you.
Christina Barton.
Honorable members of the committee, my name is Christina Barton, and I speak before you today, not only as a mother, but as a school counselor who has spent her career advocating for children and families. The message I bring is simple yet urgent. We must protect our children, respect parents, prioritize truth, transparency, and integrity in education. Some may urge us to ignore uncomfortable truths and pretend all is well, but this is dangerous. Like the story of the emperor's new clothes, pretending everything is fine pretending everything is fine means we risk losing our children's hearts and souls. When we fail to advocate for children, we fail them and deceive them in the process. I've always taught my son and students to stand for truth, even when it's difficult or comes at a cost. As Dietrich Bonhoeffer said, silence in the face of evil is itself evil. I am here today to speak out for parents who've been silenced and the children who are at risk. As a counselor, I've seen firsthand how a system that silences advocates harms children. I faced this personally when my district, ISD 535, issued a policy that required staff to withhold information from parents about their child's gender identity unless specifically asked. How can a parent support their children if they're kept in the dark? When I raised questions, I faced retaliation, including the termination of my contract and expulsion from the teachers' union, who was supposed to represent me. As a result, it seems I have been blacklisted, and despite my valiant efforts, I have had significant difficulty finding new employment. Despite the backlash, I will not be silenced. Parents should never be censored, and neither should educators or counselors who stand up for what is right. What the enemy meant to harm us, God will use for the good, the saving of many lives. Finally, we must ask ourselves, when do we allow the lines between right and wrong to become so blurred? When do we begin to prioritize policies that go against the rights of parents and children in favor of a political agenda? Aren't we a country founded on the principle of "in God we trust"? Thank you so much for your time, and please refer to my written testimony in your packet.
Next, we have Ann Taylor and Deb Corehouse. And we will start with Ann Taylor when she gets seated.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Bless you. Yeah, thanks.
Go ahead and introduce yourself for the record, Ann, and begin.
Madam Chair and members of the committee, I just want to
apologize initially when I wrote this. It wasn't maybe so catered specifically to education as we are in the Education Policy Committee, but being that there are so many wraparound services, I'm just going to speak the testimony and just if you could all kindly lend an ear to the points being made, if that is okay, Madam Chair.
That is, but please try to, keep it short and emphasize the education components, please.
Absolutely. Thank you. I want to thank you again for listening to my testimony. My name is Ann Taylor. I am a wife, mother, educator, and firm believer in the protection of all children. As we know, wraparound services in American schools have been expanding for years, and if parents are not paying attention, they may not realize how deeply these programs have infiltrated education, including our private schools. Under the Obama administration, former Secretary of Education Arne Duncan pushed for community schools under the guise of providing support for low-income students. In reality, these programs are going far beyond education, introducing government-controlled services that strip parents of their rightful authority. The Center for American Progress describes community schools as a strategy, not a specific program designed to integrate student supports. This includes medical and mental health services, food and housing assistance, and expanded learning opportunities. These presented are necessary resources, but in practice, they invite government overreach into areas where schools have no business interfering. Private schools have long accepted state and federal aid for textbooks, transportation, and counseling, but there are always strings attached. With the post-COVID push for expanded mental health services, schools, both public and private, are increasingly taking on roles that belong to the parents. This is dangerous. During a recent legislative hearing, we have been warned that wraparound services may blur the lines in education, healthcare, and government oversight. To quote the executive director of Minnesota Parents Alliance, quote, adopting full-service community programs and dispensing mental health and physical health care during school hours invites conflicts, data privacy violations, and confrontation of roles. The issue is not just theoretical.
Please wrap up your comments, please.
Thank you. I just want to finalize here, our schools must return to their core mission, and that is that parents must reclaim their role as the primary decision maker, and that is for their children. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And Deb Corehouse?
Thank you, Chair Bennett and committee members. Thank you for this opportunity to testify today. My name is Deb Corehouse, and I'm an attorney for Education Minnesota, where we represent 85,000 school professionals who dedicate their working lives to educating students and keeping them safe. We appreciate the author's amendment to conform the language regarding education to existing law. However, the language about parents directing education has perhaps inadvertently been retained in 1.12. We have a number of concerns about individual parents being permitted to direct the education of individual students, while educators are being asked to teach all of these students at the same time. We would ask that the author strike this language as well. The revised bill also retains a provision that enacts a parental right to, quote, direct the upbringing of their child in the public schools. This language may appear benign on its face, but in actuality it's fraught with problems. It makes no distinction between upbringing and the provision of basic behavioral support to manage a classroom full of students. If our member reminds students to use their manners to aid in developing positive classroom culture, does that fall into upbringing and jeopardize the educator? What if the educator asks her students to wait their turn, use kind words, keep their hands to themselves? What is the line between a student raised to take charge and a student being disruptive in the classroom? Will an educator be unable to intervene to protect students? What do they do if the child's parents each have a different view of how to direct their upbringing? This bill would also have a negative impact on student health. For example, schools perform hearing and vision screenings, and usually on an opt-out basis, which this bill prohibits. Requiring parental opt-in will significantly depress the rate of participation, so kids with unnoticed hearing and vision differences that may impact their learning and personal safety will be harmed without this inexpensive, innocuous, and valuable service. We're concerned that this bill could subject our members to significant discipline merely for doing their jobs and will create a great deal of uncertainty for educators, schools, and other parents. We recommend a no vote on HF 22. Thank you.
Thank you. The next two testifiers are remote, so we'll recognize them one at a time. We have Dory Trossen. We'll get Dory up on the screen here. And Dory, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
All right. And we'll just remind you, we have 2-minute testimonies here. And go ahead and introduce yourself for the record and begin.
Good afternoon. My name is Dory Trausen. I'm a mother of 2. As you may know, I previously testified about instances of medical overreach that happened to my family, but today I'm here to highlight the positive impact the Parental Bill of Rights will have on education. I recall a difficult time with my eldest son when he was in kindergarten. He was struggling with a classmate, and one day he hit that child. I was called to the principal's office only to face a room full of administrators and teachers, all recounting negative instances with my child. They essentially told me my son wasn't a good fit in their school. My response was shock. I had never been informed of any of these issues. I explained that my son is adopted and any perceived rejection triggers a defense response. I promised to address the behaviors at home, but I also made a specific request. Next time he's struggling, get down to his level and say, I see you're really struggling right now. Can I pray with you? After that meeting, I spoke with my son. He made apology cards for his teachers, and the next day he received hugs and affirmations from them. And from that point on, he thrived. This experience underscores the profound impact parents have on their child's educational outcomes. When we can partner with the schools that respect and support our family values, we unlock incredible potential. The Parental Bill of Rights is about collaboration. It's about ensuring parents have a seat at the table and a voice in their child's education, and the ability to guide them according to their beliefs. It's about fostering a partnership that benefits the child. Let's empower parents to be the best advocates for their children. Let's create framework to ensure an educational environment where families and schools work together to nurture and support every child's success. Please vote yes on the Parental Bill of Rights. Thank you for your time.
And next we have Alicia Leviska. We'll get Alicia pulled up here. Okay, Alicia, are you on?
I am. Can you hear me?
I can, thank you. If you could keep your testimony to 2 minutes, we would appreciate that. And go ahead and introduce yourself for the record and begin.
Madam Chair and committee members, my name is Alicia Leviska, and I am the co-director of Minnesotans for Health and Parental Rights. And I am a mother of 3 children, ages 9, 10, and 16. Today, I am here in strong support of HF 22, which protects the fundamental rights of custodial parents to make decisions regarding their children's education, medical care, and upbringing. As both an advocate and a parent, I have personally experienced the challenges that arise when parental rights are ignored. My medically complex child has had an IEP since the age of 2 years, 9 months. Despite our meticulous efforts to communicate her critical health needs, multiple districts have disregarded essential allergen information, leading to repeated serious health complications. We have endured questioning about whether we are doing enough for her, even during seasons where she has had over 9 recurrent medical and therapeutic appointments per week. And perhaps most distressingly, we have faced incidences where the district allowed a non-custodial parent to alter sensitive educational records without my knowledge or consent. These are not isolated incidents. Across Minnesota, numerous families face similar barriers, schools ignoring opt-out requests, withholding vital information from parents, and pressuring families away from the educational and medical choices that are best for their children. At the same time, many teachers are placed in difficult positions, being instructed not to share key discussions with parents, further eroding trust. HF 22 ensures that parents remain the primary decision makers in their children's lives. Most importantly, it upholds the foundational truth that parents know their children best. We have fought for our daughter through persistence, and we have found a district that respects our role as parents. But this should not be the exception. This should be the standard. I also want to clarify a point that was raised in a previous hearing, whether or not non-traditional families support this bill, and the answer is yes. Among our closest networks are many single parents, parents navigating gender identity issues, and same-sex parent couples who strongly support HF 22. They believe, as I do, that parental rights are fundamental and should apply to all parents, regardless of their background and beliefs. These families, like many others, simply want to make the best decisions for their children without unnecessary government interference. Parental rights is not a partisan issue. They are universal rights that transcend political and social labels. Thank you for your time, Madam Chair and committee members.
Thank you. And members, that concludes our list of testifiers, and public testimony is now closed. Do we have any discussion among members? Okay, Chair Jordan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a number of questions. And first of all, is this like idea around opt-in or opt-out? So as this is written, would a school be able to perform a check for head lice on a student? It's a medical exam. Would schools be able to do that?
Representative Gillman.
Thank you so much, Chair, and thank you so much, Representative Jordan. Great question. Under this bill, the Parental Bill of Rights, again, I'm just going to keep referring back to choices on lines 1.19. I mean, directing the education of the minor child, whether it be public, charter, private, or home education. If a parent is choosing public school and public education, and those things happen in the school, I believe that they'll be fully aware and it'll be transparent what will be happening in the school, and that would be the parent's choice to have their children there.
Representative Gillman, would you like nonpartisan to comment on that?
Yes,
Okay,
please.
Mr. Strom or Ms. Para?
That'd be great.
Would would you say head lice examination?
It's medical, yeah. I mean, like it, I
The
mean,
normal school.
Madam Chair.
Yeah,
So we're, talking about things like head lice screenings, the vision screening. As a child, I got glasses because there was a routine screening that determined that I couldn't see. And
like
that,
routine.
Provided me with a lifetime of reading because I was able to wear glasses. Now I wear contacts. But, I've needed that to see. My parents didn't sign me up to get my eyes examined because they didn't know. I wasn't looking at blackboards at home. So would exams like an eye check or a head lice screening that are routinely done in schools be permissible under this bill? Or would there need to be an opt-in from a parent?
Ms. Para?
Madam Chair, Representative Jordan, there is a provision in the bill that requires consent before physical examinations take place. I'm not sure whether the head lice would qualify as a physical examination. The vision screening, I'm not sure either.
Perhaps, Representative Jordan, that might be something that could be clarified in this bill, but did you want to add more to that, or?
Representative Gillman, what's your intent with this bill then?
Representative Gillman?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Representative. When you're asking me what is my intent of the bill,
Yeah,
Are
what's
you
your
saying-
legislative intent?
and the whole of it, is to have parents be a part of the discussion. And that if we need to do further, if we further need to establish what is the physical examination, I'd be willing to take advice on that from nonpartisan. I spent hours with them, and I'm really grateful for the help and support. And as we've gone through committee, that's why I've had conversations with Hennepin County, our principals, superintendents, nonpartisan staff. Thank you, God, for them. And as this keeps moving through, if it needs to be spelled out specifically, that a parent can choose then to opt out of vision screening, I believe that we can make that clear in here. Thank you.
Lee Jordan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess I'm still kind of unclear on what your legislative intent is as it relates to those in-school health screenings. I heard some kind of conflicting testimony, so I'm just kind of curious about what you're the bill author.
Yep.
This kind of thing happens in courts of law. Mm-hmm. What is your legislative intent apart from just parents are good? I think we all agree with that, but as it refers to these in-school health screenings, what is your legislative intent as it relates to parents opting in or opting out?
So Representative Gillman, in regards to vision screening, the things that happen in schools every year, is that something, I'll let you comment. Go ahead, Representative Gillman.
Thank you so much, Chair, and thank you so much, Representative. Again, non-invasive procedures, things that are happening in the school that have been a part of the school process in a public school setting. Again, I don't believe parents are going to, they'll still be able to make choices on that. What the intent of the bill is if it's going into medical exams and bigger, broader things that could have huge life impacts, I believe those are things that we need to have, parents need to be a part of, those conversations. But I don't believe non-invasive things are why this bill has come forward or my intent on that, so. Thanks.
Lead Jordan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would encourage you to figure that out and get some more language on that for the Health Committee. That is important, and those are things that are happening in schools, and they are things that, this is a committee that's very concerned about literacy, for example. Glasses are an important component of that, and actually being able to see and have those early interventions that parents are not necessarily trained to recognize early on, like early signs of dyslexia or other impediments that could hinder reading ability. But schools are. We have trained specialists who work in literacy that can do that, and I would not want to hinder their ability to identify that. I also want to be on the record of opposing all head lice outbreaks in schools. That's something that I think is very critically important, is to make sure we're not spreading that.
Representative Jordan, I just want to say amen to that. I dealt with that a lot in our first grade classrooms.
I believe that. And then to that end, I have a question just in general about what happens if parents disagree. We do know that we have parents that have strong opinions about how their children should be raised. Parents don't always agree. What happens when parents disagree on these upbringings in schools, and who is the teacher supposed to respond to? Parent A or parent B? And how is that determined which parent, if they both have equal custody of that child, how is it determined which parent is the one that the school should listen to?
Representative Gillman.
Thank you so much, Chair, and thank you, Representative Jordan. That's a great question. I actually was just on the phone today with Hennepin County, right with that question. Family courts are available for folks that are separated, not together, parents that they co-share their children and they have equal rights. So again, if a judge makes that decision on who gets to make decisions for the children, otherwise in this bill, it's for the parents. So if they can't come to conclusion, there's other avenues for them to find resolution on that.
Lead Jordan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So if parents disagree, you have a kid in the principal's office, one parent says, I want this, the other parent says, I disagree. The court has determined that they have joint custody. Does the teacher, the principal, the district have to go to court to get a decision about whether or not to let a kid read a book or pursue a mental health screening in school? How does that work for the school officials who are actually dealing with this on the ground?
Representative Gillman.
Thank you so much, Chair, and thank you, Representative Jordan. Again, that is for the courts to determine. And if this does land, if this were to land in 260C, if two parents have different decisions on how their children should be raised or what should be happening with their education or anything, if they go to a counselor, don't go to the counselor, it is not for the school to decide. No, it is for the parents to make the decision. So it's their children.
Jordan, should we have nonpartisan state what current law says for, say, like curriculum review and
Yeah, that would be
type of thing?
great, Madam Chair. And then also I'm hoping Representative Gillman, then after we hear that, can then address what the school is supposed to do with that child in the, courts, you can't, there's not a 1-900 number you can call and get someone to answer your phone call here. Courts take time. So what should the school be doing in the meantime? Who at the school is in charge of that? But it would be great to hear from nonpartisan
So if
staff.
nonpartisan has comments on what current law states about, say, curriculum review and how that works currently in statute. Ms. Para.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, Section 120B20 requires districts to have a procedure for a parent, guardian, or adult student, if the student is 18 or older, to review the content of the instructional materials. And if the parent or guardian or the adult student objects, they can make reasonable arrangements for alternative instruction. And then there's some other language there about the alternative instruction. The statute doesn't specify, however, which parent would determine that if the parents disagreed.
Lead Jordan. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So then Representative Gillman, what happens if they disagree?
Representative Gillman.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Representative. Again, if we keep looking at the bill, when I read the bill and when I understand how parents can agree or disagree, they are going to have to come to a conclusion on what they're going to do and what they're going to decide with their child. And in the meantime, if there are options for them to opt out of things, to have different instruction, whatever's reasonable for the child, the school also has purview over that. So,
Lead Jordan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative Gillman, that doesn't answer my question.
Okay.
I would really, you need to come up with an answer to this. It's something that's going to be important for our schools and other educational settings to figure this out. It's a bit distressing to not have answers to this sort of thing. I mean, I have deep concerns about this bill. I know a number of other members do. You don't have to come back to me, Madam Chair. I think I've made my point that this bill is, I think we can all agree that parents are important in kids' life, whether that's their biological parents or whether that is an adoptive parent or that person who is in charge of making those choices. But we also need to accept and know that this bill is not the solution to empowering parents. This is a bill that's going to create bureaucratic hurdles. And this is also a bill that we heard lots of testimony. There's plenty of written testimony that does not respect students' gender identities and the realities that they face where they might not have a safe home. So I hope you're considering children that do not have a safe home to return to, and that school needs to continue to be that safe space. We heard an important bill earlier today that had broad bipartisan support about keeping kids safe. And this is a bill that testifiers said mental health wasn't something that should be important in schools. Mental health is the #1 thing I hear from students about what they need in their schools. It's also the #1 thing I hear from teachers about what their students need. They need mental health services. They need these wraparound services to be in school. And I'm very worried about putting up additional barriers to students being able to access the things they need to learn. So I know there are other members with questions, but I'll leave it at that, and I hope you can take some more time to think about how this bill will actually play out in districts.
Thank you, Lead Jordan. And just a comment, I know just from teaching and from talking to other schools that there are lots of obviously split parenting situations now, and schools are already dealing with those types of things. Be something that Representative Gillman can consider, but I can tell you there's plenty of those issues still that happen in many, many areas in our schools, and they deal with them appropriate locally. So Representative Green.
Thank you, Chair Bennett, and thank you, Representative, for being here. I have a lot of concerns with this bill. My question is about the data and the premise of building this parental bill of rights. So can you tell me what sources of evidence you collected for, let's say, the surgical interventions taking place? Like how many surgeries have taken place at public schools in Minnesota?
Representative Green, that one would be for the Health Committee. If you could stick to the, good question, but we're just sticking to the education, and their surgeries don't take place in our schools. So
That's exactly, my Chair, that's exactly the point I'm trying to make. Surgeries do not take place in our schools.
But so we're just focusing on the education points of this bill, and we're going to allow the other committees to, have discussions on those jurisdictions that don't have to do with education. So if we
Okay,
could-
so I'm, right. Thank you, Chair. Okay, well, these parental bill of rights will exist in the schools, so I think we should be able to ask questions about all of this since this bill is here, but I will respect that as best as I can here. Okay, can you tell me how many public schools have been conducting religious training in our schools? How many reports of that have happened within the state over the last 5 years?
Representative
Because
Gillman.
that's another point in here.
Thank you, Chair Bennett, and thank you so much for your question, Representative Green. Can you identify on which line you're referring to, please, for me?
Representative Green.
Yes, it's in the Bill of Rights under 2.4. So it says, direct the moral or religious training of the minor child.
And that may or may not be the education components in this bill. This bill does cover not just education. It's coming here because there are specific education, but that one kind of overlaps. So Representative Gillman.
Thank you so much, Chair, and thank you so much. It's great to see what you're asking about. And again, 2.44 basically just says direct the moral and religious training of the minor child, and that's simply what it means. If there is moral and religious training happening in a school, if it's happening in your place of worship, it could mean anywhere. It's saying that parents get to direct the moral and religious training of the child, minor child. It's not saying in a public school, in a charter school. It's not stating that at all. Thank you.
And just a comment that outside of theology classes or whatever, public schools should not be teaching religion already. But Representative Green, follow up.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and I agree with you. They shouldn't be, because they are not teaching religion in schools. And this bill, though, talks about K through, I mean, this is regarding to schools.
Yeah. Representative Green, this bill covers parental bill of rights in many areas, from going to the doctor at a clinic or in schools and so on. So we're just focusing on those education components, even though I know there are other areas of concern that you might have. We'll save those for the other committees. But go ahead.
Thank you, Chair.
Representative Green.
Yeah, I think actually that kind of gets to the point of what I, hang on, my iPad just went dead here for a second, of what my question is, because reading this, it does seem like it is directed at schools. That's how it reads. It's in the Education Policy Committee. But there are things in here that are claims that aren't true. And so that is where I have issue with this bill. We legislate on things that are misleading or false claims about public education or our teachers or our schools in the state of Minnesota, it's dangerous to do that. And parents and guardians already have rights in our schools. We have a seat at the table. We can review curriculum, instructional materials. We can opt students out of lessons. We have access to educational records. We have teacher conferences. We can opt out of having our child's picture taken. And we need to do that in writing already. And we have access to school records regarding our child. There are no limitations there. And so my question is, why are we legislating things around schools that aren't actually happening? That's my question for you, Representative.
Can you, Representative Gillman, and do you want to comment on the scope of this bill? Is this just a school bill, or does this go beyond? I mean, that might be a little bit of a confusion.
Thank you so much, Chair, for that. And I appreciate the comments and also your question. The scope of this bill, again, is very broad. That parents, I'm a parent of 5 kids, and 2 biological children and 3 adopted. So 3 of my children have been, there's been a choice that the birth mother and the birth father have made to choose to terminate their rights to the children that I have now as my kids. And so again, this does impact our education to healthcare. It's broad. And it's just saying, 20 other states right now have adopted, laws to just preserve and protect parents having a seat at the table. When we think about just some of the bills that I've heard today on protection, one of the quotes from one of our members here, parents are the biggest protectors of our kids. When we listen to a bill just in our health committee, parents are the biggest protector of our kids. That's why this bill is here. Parents are asking for an opportunity to sit at the table, and you're correct in stating that there's already these things in existence, but there also is gray areas. And there's very strong overreach that is happening. And when we make things clear and crystal clear, and again, I just did find out, I was searching things up even for Representative Jordan, parents can opt out of head lice screening, and they can opt out of things. That is their choice. Because, again, we are their biggest advocates. I'm the one that has to deal with whatever's going on with my own children at home at night, if they're sleeping well, whatever's happening in their day. So I am their biggest advocate. And this is just stating that parents get to have a seat at the table, and it's our right. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. And just to clarify, so we don't have confusion, this bill, the scope is much greater than this committee. It's already been to the Children and Families Committee, comes here for the education components. It is going on to the Health Committee, and also will be going to the Judiciary Committee. So there will be lots of discussions about those other areas. And then also, members, we have about 5 minutes left. We could maybe go 5 minutes over, but we have Representative Hill and Representative Roach who still would have questions. Representative Green, any follow-up?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I mean, the only thing I want to say is, yes, I believe parents are protectors, guardians are protectors, custodial parents are protectors of children. We do have the opportunities to advocate for our kids. I think a blanket bill like this is really dangerous. I think it implies a lot of things, and I think it implies things that are not happening, which seems to be part of the tenor on a national level too, that public schools are somehow indoctrinating kids and performing surgeries. We've heard that on news sources, completely false information. And so that's what I take issue on this bill. I'm glad it's going through other committees for others to evaluate. Thank you.
Representative Hill.
Thank you, Chair Bennett, and thank you, Representative Gillman. Couple of quick questions. I think it's important for me to note, just as a foundation, I have my dream job. Each year it is my honor, my charge, my responsibility to meet the needs of 170 different, uniquely different students who waltz through my classroom door as a high school English teacher. And I agree with you. Parents ought to be the ultimate protector of their children. They ought to be. It is my honor to be that protector for 3 children with my wife, Emily. Unfortunately, not all parents are. And that's reality. And it's a sad reality. But as we attempt to interpret this piece of legislation, I'm struggling in several areas. So just a few very direct yes or no questions. Representative, do you believe that invasive medical procedures are taking place in our schools?
Representative Gillman.
Thank you,
You
Chair.
didn't
I
say
thought that
that.
we already answered that question
Yeah.
earlier.
I did not hear an answer to that,
Yeah,
Chair.
she never said that, but if you want to answer yes or no?
No.
No. Okay. Representative Hill?
Thank you. I have other questions about this bill that I'll just mention because we're short on time and I want to leave time for others. I have problems with this bill in regards to statutory language aligned with 260C and the definitions of parent and children. Moral training is another area that has many concerns for me. If I ask my students about the golden rule, or if I ask my students if a class rule should be to respect one another, am I now in violation of somehow moral training for my students? This bill has a lot of concerns for many who have reached out to us to share them. Lastly, I would offer what Sydney Jordan talked about. Parents don't always agree on what's best for their children. And, you know, I've had experiences with students who have made mistakes in the past and been in touch with parents who have very differing views about how that should be addressed, whether it's with plagiarism or otherwise. How should those things be untangled under the words of this statute?
Representative Gillman, I think you already covered that with Representative Jordan, but you have a quick answer? If the two parents disagree?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for that question again. Again, it is already in statute. Can I ask a quick question to nonpartisan?
Go ahead, Representative Gillman.
Thank you so much. Where is it in statute where it would definitely go to the child if the school perceives that if the parents are not being reasonable and that needs to err on the side of the best interest of the child? Where is that found in statute again?
Ms. Para?
Madam Chair, Representative Gillman, I think you're referring to the student health data provision in 1302. Schools can not disclose some health data about students if, essentially, if it's not in the best interest of the child. Is that the?
Thank you, Gilman. Thank you so much for that. That wasn't quite what I was looking for, but I'm glad that you brought that up as well. Again, going back to this, parents, if they cannot make a decision on the best course of action for the child's got to be a piece of it. Both parents have to be a piece of that. I'd be curious to know in your experience in those situations, 50 to 52% of people are not married to their partner. They are divorced, may have kids, may not have kids together. But what are schools doing now? What's working now? What isn't working now? And I'd be open and willing to have all those conversations to see what is best practice on that. But we are adults, and the parents need to make the decision, And when that decision is not come to, then I believe from how this bill reads, but how things would go, is it would err on the side of the child and the parent making a decision going forward. So I've not had that experience, thankfully. But I don't always agree with my husband on best course of action to discipline at home. So we have to figure out ways to do that at home as well. So thanks.
Thank you. And Representative Gillman, so I think that would be a good conversation to have between the two of you offline. And schools are already, again, they're doing this. I had that in my classroom. Over half my students had, split up parents, and they're constantly dealing with differing decisions that a parent thinks or doesn't think. So they would continue that. But let's kind of move this on. We have one more question I'd like to get to our vote. So did you have anything else, Representative Hill, or could you take that offline?
Yes, just in closing, and, again, I thank you for the discussion. Again, I have a lot of confusion and concern around this bill, to Rep. Green's comment that something sinister is happening around every corner in our schools is a narrative that I often hear. It's not the case.
No,
For
it's
25
not.
years, I've watched my colleagues in many settings who attempt to care for and teach and support learners every single day. And this idea that there's something surgical, that there's some sort of indoctrination taking place in our schools is insulting at best.
Can I just comment on that, please, Chair?
Let's just keep that offline if we could. We really need to move on. Sorry about that, but
Thanks.
I'll let you go offline with him. And Representative Roach, I can give you about 2 minutes at most. So if you could ask your question.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Appreciate you bringing this in front of the committee. I see what the attempt of this bill is trying to do, and I appreciate it. I think it's much needed. I think we can sit here and disagree, but there have definitely been instances across the country where there has been forms of indoctrination and conditioning of children, and what you're trying to do here is protect parents and have them have a say in preventing that from happening. So that's definitely the case, and I thank you for what you're doing. I appreciate it. I think it's much needed.
Thank you. Representative Gillman, I will give you a 30-second closing. We need to vote on your bill.
All right.
Move it on.
Thank you so much. So thank you, Madam Chair and members. This bill, again, is about parental rights and who is best positioned to make decisions in the best interests of the child. Specifically to this committee, the state already has several laws on the books that respect and promote the rights of parents to be active participants in the education of their children. I believe this bill, as it relates to the educational provisions, echoes those rights for parents while recognizing the essential safeguards for children. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Representative Gillman. The chair motion that House File 22 as amended be referred to the Committee on Health and Finance Policy. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay.
No.
House File 22 as amended is referred to the Committee on Health, Finance, and Policy. And members, thank you for the respectful debate here. And that concludes today's agenda. Thank you all very much. Our next meeting will be Tuesday, February 25th. And with that, whoops, March 4th, sorry. And with that, the committee stands adjourned.